Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this tutorial I'm going to show y'all how to make your own necklace in this style. It's chainmail, and it's merging the Celtic Visions weave with a half Persian 3-in-1. So let's get started. To do this project, we're going to be using a combination of two weaves. So here we have the half Persian 3-in-1. There will be in-depth tutorial links to the in-depth tutorials down in the video description, as well as maybe up on the screen. Definitely down in the video description though. So half Persian 3-in-1 made out of an 18 gauge 3/16 bright aluminum, and then a Celtic Vision weave made out of a 18 gauge 3/16, 16 gauge 5/16, as well as the 18 gauge 2/16. Man, I'm saying numbers, but I am not comprehending the numbers that I'm saying. All the tools and materials will be written down below as well. Okay, so these rings, whatever size that they are, we are making the stuff out of them. So you can see here, I have the large and small, kind of a 2-2 chain, and then I build it out into the Celtic Visions. I'm going to begin by wrapping this very pretty labradorite cabochon, which is such a pretty flash, in the half Persian 3-in-1. I love this weave for setting cabs because you can see it has that little, it makes like a little natural groove that is like a little trough for our stone to sit in. You will also need chainmail pliers of your choice. I enjoy a good bent nose and flat nose pliers. And then also some DevCon 5-minute epoxy. It's a 2-part epoxy. I don't recommend this for if you're using a crystal clear stone, like if you have a glass cabochon or quartz crystal or something. This will yellow over time. But on the back of an opaque stone, it doesn't really matter. But man, even the back of that's so pretty. Goodness. But yeah, and then a little sheet of scrap paper and some long toothpicks for stirring. So to join the ends of our half Persian 3-in-1, whenever I'm not certain about the size of the stone, I kind of just start weaving and then hold it up onto the project to gauge how many more rings or links I might need. It looks like I'm gonna at least need 2. So just a refresher, we'll tuck this ring behind that one because you want them stacked on top of each other. And then I have here some one open with one closed on each. And I'm going to hook through, boop, and boop. Now again, like I had mentioned, I have much more in-depth tutorials that focus specifically on this technique elsewhere here on YouTube. This video is for the complete project, not just the individual weaves. So, adding the second ring, well, second unit, just hooking on like that, and doing my best to close it. I don't necessarily recommend this as a beginner weave. I would recommend really getting your bearings about you on both the half Persian 3-in-1 and the Celtic Visions before tackling this one. Okay, and I think we're to our last ring. So I don't need to add any more, I just need to close it off. So I'm going to take this one open with no closed on it and thread through 1 and 2, making sure that they're stacked properly. Then I'm going to bring this end around, again making sure they're laying properly, and just hook through right there. Easier said than done for sure. Keep in mind I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and this was the hardest weave for me to learn how to join. So I've closed that ring, but practice will make progress. And then you can see this one here is sitting underneath this one. I need to bring it up and over. That way it repeats that stacking. I'm going to find the opening on the ring and open it. And then I'm going to try to get you a good view of what's happening here. See how I just slid that ring over? I promise you that is not just witchcraft. It's just practice. Please visit one of my other tutorials that goes into much greater detail on how to do that if you're having trouble with it. Okay, so we have that joined, and now we can take this and turn it inside out, or right side out rather, and try to fit it onto our stone. And I think that fits just fine. Such a beautiful piece of labradorite. Love that flash in it, that golden green. Okay, so now, before moving on, we're going to go ahead and mix together the 2-part epoxy. Let me get our work surface turned around. Now, this stuff doesn't smell good. It tastes even worse. Please don't eat it. You know, use ventilation, keep it away from your kids and pets and stuff. Pull the cap off. And I really like that it has this plunger, so you don't really have to measure anything out. Get all the dog hair out of the way. Boop. Just plunge it out, put the cap back on, and set it off to the side. Sound effects can help. They're not necessary, but they help. And now I'm just gonna try my best to stir this together. Now keep in mind, it says 5-minute epoxy. You really only have about a 3-minute pot time, which is the amount of time that the medium is workable. And so I want to spend about 2 minutes of that stirring. And I am just doing my best to scrape and fold and stir and get it all off of the stick and then redistributing it. Like, I really want every little bit mixed in. I don't worry so much about whether or not it has bubbles in it. I'm more concerned about making sure I throw my pliers on the ground. Thank goodness gravity always has my back. Okay. So it's getting a nice consistency going here. Going to bring our stone up, setting it on our work surface. And again, making sure the placement is pretty good. You can see I like having a little bit of lip around here. Thank you, honey. So nice. Okay. And now I'm going to scoop a glob of it up onto my toothpick and then let gravity do its work. And just bring it down onto the back of the cabochon. It's actually a really excellent idea if you have any little metal components with like a company name or a signature or anything like that. You can suspend it under this resin. Because that way if... Oops, I just stuck my thumb in it. Rubbing alcohol or actually soap and water will be good to take that off. I actually don't recommend using rubbing alcohol. Sometimes you can get some weird chemical reactions going on. And I don't want to put too much on here, but I do want to get it kind of nice and full. And as this cures, it's going to start heating up. I've never had it damage a stone, but just be mindful if you have it on your skin, it may burn you. And then I always end up with just a little leftover, so if you have any other projects that could use to be glued, now would be the time to do that. I don't actually have anything on hand, so I hate to waste even just a little bit, but normally I'll have like a little stack of projects that need just touched up with something. Nope, none immediately on hand. And so if you want, you can just keep playing with it. But it'll start to get, I mean, it's very stringy, but it'll start to get like chunky. Okay, so I'm going to turn our work surface back around. I'm just going to leave that there to set, because after about 5-10 minutes, you can move on with it. I wouldn't recommend doing this on a piece, though, that you're going to be baking later. It's definitely a finishing touch. So now we're visiting our Celtic Vision section of the weave. And we're going to be doing some steps here that once you have the hang of it will be redundant, but if it's your first time doing this, I really recommend doing all of these steps. So we have an estimated length here. You want it to be able to go around the perimeter of your piece without any problems. But while that cures, I'm just going to start building it outward. So I'm going to take and sandwich our long section between two closed rings. And then I'm going to hook 1, 2, 3 on that side and close. Again, I have a much more in-depth tutorial about this elsewhere that focuses just on the Celtic Visions, whereas in this tutorial, like I had said, it's a project video, so we're focusing on the final piece. But you can see I want to hook through this ring, and this ring. So boop, boop, and boop. Just like that. Again, probably easier said than done. Now at this point, they'll have a tendency to just want to flip around. So we do have to make it a little easier on ourselves, come around and at least do one side. 1, 2, 3, like that. And what that's going to do is that's going to stabilize our rings to make them stay in their shape. And I did them doubled up on this section, but this is actually the segment that I had made in the Celtic Visions tutorial. So we'll just do with it what we're gonna do. And I'm going to continue adding a ring to either side to make a little chainmail sandwich. And then hooking 1, 2, 3. And closing. Now something too though, you can see I have 1 on this side, and so I've done my 1 over here. I don't want to put in all this work just to end up having it be like alternated weirdly. So I've put in the 1 on this side, so I'm going to go to the other side. Oops, there it goes. These rings are trying to run away on me. Looking through 1, 2, 3, and close. One, 2, 3, and close. So you can see how that's happening, hopefully. So I'm going to continue doing that for the next 3 segments. And then by that time, our cabochons should be secured completely and completely cured. As you can see here on our, yep, that's how it's going to start behaving. It's very goopy. Like, if your epoxy starts acting like this, it's too late. You can't use it to glue stuff together anymore. It's already curing. So I'm very confident. Yeah, ooh, it's nice and warm. It's chilly in here. My hands are a little cold, so the warm cab feels really nice. But I'm very pleased. It didn't leak around to the front at all. It didn't fill in any of those little holes. This is 100% perfect. I'm very happy with how this is coming out. So I'm going to set it down before I mess it up. I'm going to set this aside. And I will meet y'all right back here whenever I get done assembling this. Our resin has cured on the back of the cabochon. It's not, you know, completely hardened up yet, but it is workable. And so we can take our long strip of the almost incomplete Celtic Visions and bring it around. And you can see it's almost coming all the way around. I don't want to join this end just yet. What I'm going to do is actually come in and let me zoom that in just a little for you. Get a slightly better angle. Hopefully this will be good. Because what we're going to do is we're going to open up these rings along the incomplete edge. So make sure you're working on the incomplete edge. I'm going to find where the opening is on the ring, and I'm going to open it. And then I'm going to just hook it onto one of those loops on the half Persian 3-in-1. Just right through there. And I tell you what, some bent nose pliers are invaluable right here. Being able to get down into the weave like that. And so that's how that is attached. And I'm going to go the next string over, find the opening on the ring, I apologize if you guys can hear a dog frantically howling. I think the neighbors left and their dog is in the backyard losing its mind. So see how that comes together? And so I'm just going to move over to the next one, open it, hook through the next loop in the pattern. Oops. So I'm going to have to get used to that happening. Pliers slipping. Sometimes that just happens. Sorry, I don't mean to go off camera. So there we go. Slide it right on through. And bring those ends together. Oops. See how that's joining? And this is actually a great way to make three-dimensional weaves. You can see how it would attach and swing around. But we're going for a nice, medallion look. It's going to get quite snug, so maybe incorporating a second pair of bent nose pliers can be helpful. Yes, that's very helpful. Just being able to fit the tips in there. So here I have my regular ones, and these ones are pretty petite and almost flimsy in comparison to the ones that are twice as big. But when it comes to just needing to get the tips of the pliers in there, it's hard to beat. So often I'll interchange. There's the opening. Oops. Use one pair to open, and then use the other pair to get in there and close. And close. But I feel like that just gives us a really nice little, definitely a solid connection. Where we start to have, where we only have one ring, that's where I'm going to pull from my pile of opened rings, and we'll just add one through and start hooking them in as though they had been there the whole time. Because I prefer the solid connection look of having two rings attaching each segment as opposed to just having one ring attaching each segment. So I'm actually going to attach this one. I like following along side by side with you guys, y'all working on the project along with me. I feel like whenever I do it in real time, maybe it gives you a better idea of how long something like this can actually take. And, that's something that, especially with the leather working, I'd had a few folks who were like, oh my god, an hour and 40 minutes for a video. I'm like, dude, this was a 12-hour project. It was a miracle that I got it edited down to an hour and 40 minutes. I love these little bent nose. Now, also, I wouldn't recommend doing this pattern in steel, and if you do it in steel, maybe just use aluminum for these rings. You're going to make your hands hate you if you do all of this in steel. But don't take my word for it. Try it out for yourself. Let me know what you think. Just trying to share words of experience. Whenever I did this in stainless steel, it was a feat of endurance, that whenever I was done, I never wanted to do again. So there you can see, I just looped through as if I were just doing the Celtic Vision weave, and then hooking through our pattern. And also, to put this into perspective, if you were making this out of stainless steel, these pliers are stainless steel. The rings that we'd be trying to close would be out of a thicker metal than our pliers. So that's why I don't recommend it. It's certainly not in something as tight as this. Okay, so yeah, that's just how it's going to continue around. I'm going to keep weaving this, and then I'll meet you guys right back here whenever we get to the end where we're joining it together. So it occurred to me while I was weaving, trying to cram my pliers into all these little tight spots, getting increasingly frustrated. There's a lot of similarities between this design and the Celtic snowflake and Celtic star designs that I've done in the past. So if you've tried this method, or you don't feel like trying it, and you want something a little bit easier, I'm going to propose an alternate method, which is each of these little links that we were looping through anyways. I'm going to go ahead and add in one of our small 18 gauge 3/16 inch rings through right from the get-go, just like this. Okay, so it's adding in our last one, boop, right through there. And so now from here, we have those rings. And I need to put 2 closed on this one to continue that pattern around. Then I'm closing it. Now you'll notice there's 2 rings through each of these 1 center rings. That one's going through it, and that one's going through it. So this one needs to be hooking through 1 more. I literally, I had a brain blast, you guys, doing this tutorial for y'all. And now it's like, I don't know how I haven't been doing it like this for all these years. Now granted, it's been a hot minute, like it's probably been about a year and a half since last time I did this design. But, man, it's always a good idea, I guess, to revisit an older piece. So I'm hooking through those 2 rings, right there, and then these 2 that are attached to the bezel, and hooking on 2 closed. Boop, boop. Sound effects are not necessary, but they do help. Hooking through these 2, hooking through this one, and, well, it looks like we don't have enough little spaces. So that one's only going to have the one attached. Is that avoidable? No, it would make it way too tight. Because we do have the option here of joining this ring to that one. And that's going to give us a very nice domed effect. But, oh, I'm afraid it might be too domed. Yeah, I think that's going to be too domed. So we're going to have to add in this one. So it's only going to be holding on to one attached to the bezel. But I think that'll be alright. And so we're coming up in between these 2 rings and through those 2. So, just like that. Yeah, and I feel horrible saying, oh, just like that, because it's not that simple. Like, this can be really complicated, you guys. If you're getting frustrated, you are not alone. And so you see how that kind of made the base structure for it. And so now I'm going to come through with an open ring and hook through this one and this one. Just like that, and close it. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the front side first. Hook through that one there, and that one there. Well, that works out pretty alright. And close it. See how that's starting to build up and they're starting to look like they belong? So we're going to flip it over and take an open ring and hook through here and here. We want to make sure that the rings are stacked on top of each other, not interlaced, if that makes sense. So see how that one's separate from that one is separate from that one, but they all stack together. So that'll be something that you'll want to keep an eye out for. Then I'm going to hook through, these are our last two. See how that one laced through? That's not what we want at all. So we're going to make sure that it stays stacked properly. And now I'm going to close it. And so now we get to come through, because you can see that's all floppy and weird. So we're going to use these small rings to hook through 1, 2, and 3. And then close. And then, so again, just building out from the center in layers. This is our final layer, so we're just going through 1, 2, 3, and close. I think this went really well. 1, 2, and 3, and close. And so now we only need those 2 more. Yeah, I very much prefer this method of building out from the center. And I want to thank you guys for everyone who's a subscriber and everyone who just pops by and watches the videos that interest them. Because if it weren't for y'all, I wouldn't be revisiting these older pieces from a teaching perspective, and I might have never come across that. So thanks you guys for this opportunity to teach you today and share these ideas and breakthroughs that I have from time to time. But yeah, so there we are. And you can see it's still a little wonky sometimes in spots. There's a little too much movement in the rings, or something will get pinned one way or another. You can just shape it around to how it needs to be. You could come through and wire wrap these points together, or use a quite small ring and hold it together. But I also find that once you get it woven and things kind of relax a bit, they stop moving around so much. But there we have our very nice Celtic Visions and half Persian 3-in-1 bauble. And I think it looks really nice just laying on the table. This is something that I think makes a really lovely bracelet or hand flower. You could build it out this way or around into a big cuff bracelet. They make beautiful, beautiful necklaces with some Celtic Visions coming off the sides. Really bold statement pieces. And a way that we could do that would be to just attach like here and here. Oh, it's difficult sometimes to find where it's the shoulders, like the proper shoulders of it. Because you want it to be completely level. In a perfect world, I would have glued it after everything were said and done. That way I could make sure the shoulders were lined up. And what I mean by that is if I attached a chain here and attached a chain here, well, that's kind of lopsided. There and there is lopsided. So we could do there and there, have it be just a little asymmetrical. Though we could also do a second layer of epoxy and put a brooch back on this and wear it as a shawl pin. Or we could also put this onto a piece of leather. These loops here would be perfect for lacing through. So again, just ideas. Now also, if you're like me and you just can't stand that it's not going to be symmetrical, You can, and this was like 5 minutes of wrenching and forcing, you can pop it out. Be very careful that you are not using a brittle stone. This one still has a little bit of epoxy stuck to it. But what we can do from here is try to wrench this out. And for anybody who's ever used like E6000 or anything like that, you know that you can wrench pieces apart. Also, this doesn't have the 24 hours full cure time to set up. But there we go. So now we could take it, we could place in any stone that we like. We could actually just do it like this, you know, just have a nice little ring like that. Even that just by itself is quite pretty. This would actually make a really beautiful base for a gemstone sphere or something even. But now we can come in and position our stone. There we go. And make sure that she is centered up perfectly this time. And then we can go back and epoxy her in, or we still have this whole set of holes here. We could fractal wrap it. Sorry, I'm having so many different ideas, y'all. So I'm really excited to see what you all come up with this design. Different ways that you can make it your own and improve upon it with your own artistic visions. But yeah, I think I'm gonna make this one into a necklace, joining from here and here with some beads. But first I'll have to mix up some more epoxy. Hey y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with me during this tutorial. I do hope that it was helpful to you. I was so excited to share that kind of breakthrough with you guys, to go from the method that I have been using for years, but I've never taught this design before, and it just helped me kind of see it through a different perspective and to find a much easier way of going about it. So y'all have helped me a lot just by being here for me to make videos for. So thank you guys. I do hope that it was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. All of the links to my social media and different things will be down in the video description. You can tag me on Instagram or share pictures to my Facebook wall. And then also, if you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, as well as participate in my fairy houses, my craft crates, my digital download content, all sorts of things, please consider becoming a patron. There's a lot of stuff going on over there that I'm pretty excited about, and part of that is the monthly craft crates, which we coil and cut our own rings for, so you can have the exact rings that I use in my projects for your chainmail. And I find that can be kind of helpful, and with our Patreon proceeds, we are working towards a couple of bigger goals that are very long term, but we're hoping to maybe to get into anodizing one day. It's a little far off, but my eye's always on the horizon of what we might be able to accomplish together. So thanks again, y'all. I'll see you around. Happy crafting. Bye.